Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Titus, and in this video, I'm here to talk to you guys about how to effectively auction your plants. So stick around for all those tips. Alright, so the first tip that I'm going to give you guys is in relation to joining a Facebook market page for that specific product or plant that you're trying to sell. Okay, so I've talked about it in my previous video how to sell plants and mainly online, okay, because of the situation that we're having at the moment. That's actually the most effective way of selling plants. However, to effectively sell a plant on a particular day or time that you allocate, if you really need some funds, the fastest way to do it is actually putting it in auction. Okay, and to put a plant into auction, you need a platform. Okay, the best platforms to actually do this in is in a plant-specific page group that actually sells that type of product or plant. So for example, online in Facebook, I've joined this, I honestly forgot what it's called, but it's like Rare Tropical Plant BSS group. And the BSS basically stands for buying, selling, and something else. I forgot what the other S is. Okay, so with those rare plant page group that actually specifically sells our auction plants, join those because there's a lot of plant collectors that's eyeing specific plants that you may actually have. Okay, so that's my first tip. The next tip that I'm gonna give you guys is about auctioning plants that's actually not available in the common market or commonly available in the market. Okay, so what I mean by that is auction plants that are actually rare. Okay, people are less likely to sell plants straight up if they're rare, okay, because people don't necessarily know what the value is of that particular plant. And some people, might have a certain budget that they have in mind, but if you allow them to participate in an auction, then they might actually then be willing to pay the price that they have set in their mind. So an example of that is, again, I'm going to use this plant because I've used it on my previous video and I still want to use it here because it's relevant. So for example, Thai Constellation, okay, if you do auction this type of plant, you're going to get a lot of hits because it's something that's not readily available in the market. Thai Constellation is actually really nice because it's kind of like I don't want to call it the weaker part because it's certainly not, but this is the less rarer Monstera that's variegated. Okay, and nowadays variegated Monsteras are quite popular. Their prices have actually gone up and down over time, and I've actually seen like really scary prices back then, and now they're kind of stabilizing down the normal Monstera Albo. But with Thai Constellation, people may want to have this as an alternative. And for me, I think I'd probably prefer to own a Thai Constellation because of how hardy they are in comparison to a normal Monstera Albo, even though I haven't really owned one of those yet, but that's just what I've heard. Okay, my next step about auctioning plants is taking good and nice photos of the plant that you're trying to auction. With regards to taking photo, okay, I might make a future video in relation to that. This is a Manjula right here. If you're trying to take a good photo of a particular plant that you're trying to sell, make sure that you actually take a full view, okay, of that plant and it's actually centered. Okay, sometimes people might want to sell a plant in a background of just white. However, what I found effective personally when I'm auctioning something is putting a plant with a background of other rare plants that you have. Okay, and the reason why that's good and effective in selling your plants is because it actually tells people who are actually looking into your account that you are a serious collector and you're not a scammer. Okay, so I like to place this in front of, if I sell something, I like to place it in front of other rare plants that I might have. Again, it really depends on what you call rare. Okay, some people, it might be having a Gloriosa Monstera Albo, I don't know what other variegated rare plants that you guys might think and consider. Okay, but if you guys are a serious plant collector and you have some of those plants in your background whilst you're selling something, it may actually make people feel and believe that you're actually someone who's legit. Okay, which I hope you are. Okay, this is not for scammers, so if you're watching this just to scam people, please don't. Please just stop now. I'm not making this video for scammers at all. With regards to taking photos, I always talk about how to make sure that you don't put filters in there. Putting filters in there makes it look fake. It's actually less likely that people will trust your picture image if it's actually got a lot of filters on it. The only thing that I would actually do with that particular plant if you are taking a photo is increasing the saturation of it, because oftentimes normal photography doesn't do justice. Okay, and just slightly enhancing it. However, please do not put filters in there as best as possible. Okay, the next thing that we're going to talk about is in relation to pricing. Okay, so when you're pricing and auctioning a plant, you want to go low, and I know that there is a risk of you losing money. However, okay, this is something that I've found really effective. In the past, I've sold pink princesses. Okay, I've noticed that if you start at $50, okay, oftentimes when you auction that, it might just go up to $70, okay, and there might be just 2 people bidding on that. However, if you sell that same pink princess and start at $10, okay, because it's so popular, again, with the pricing, don't worry about what I'm saying because it might change in future. Okay, so with pink princess, it's a baby one. If you put it down to $10, and there's then someone who would then comment $20 if that's your increments, and then $30, $40, and then people often would see that there is a lot of people bidding on this, so it must be good. So then more people will bid, and it's actually gonna stack. Okay, so laws of human nature is what other people like, other people end up liking as well. Okay, so that's just the law of human nature. If someone thinks that something is not worth it because not a lot of people are paying attention to it, and I'm talking about in high school perhaps, if there's that girl or boy that you thought your friends liked and then you ended up liking, okay, that's basically what the laws of human nature is in relation to plant as well. Okay, so if you generate a lot of hits in relation to that plant that you're auctioning, then it's highly likely that more people will actually comment and actually bid on that plant that you have. So I know that it's a bit risky, but I would always start really low. Even if you think that a plant is really rare, I would start really low because, you know, who knows, it might be a surprise how high it gets. I've seen a particular seller in the Facebook market where she auctions a lot of rare plants starting from $5, and then it ends up going up to $500, which is crazy. Okay, so if you end up selling that plant that's rare for straight up $400, I think people are gonna get intimidated, and therefore you won't get a lot of hits. So just remember that. Go low, but it's risky. Okay, the next thing that I'm gonna talk to you guys about is in relation to auction templates. Okay, so there are various auction templates that are available out there. In fact, there are specific groups who actually want you to use the template that they have. However, if you do want to use a sample of what I may use, I will put that down below in the description. Again, no intention to actually copyright this. It's just very general. Okay, so if you want an example of the type of template that you might use, then I will post that down below in the description. Feel free to use it if you're trying to auction something. There are some specific things that you need to be mindful in relation to your description, and I'll talk a little bit more about this. So for example, one of them is in relation to whether a plant is tissue cultured or not, if it's actually got a mother plant, and you need to specify that on your photo as well, because that can certainly improve the likelihood of the buyer buying the plant if they know that it has a mother plant that's actually quite healthy, mature, and nice. And then the other thing is also in relation to the postage. So how much are you posting that plant for, depending on their location, and also specifying in the description of where you can and can't post as well. So it's good to actually understand that. The last thing you want is actually having a buyer or auctionee. Is that what you call them? Auctioneer or auctionee. Someone who's auctioning, or let's just call them buyer. Okay, the last thing you want is having a buyer actually auction and winning, and then finding out that you can't actually deliver there. And what do I mean by you can't deliver there? So if you're delivering somewhere where there's restrictions in relation to quarantining the plants, then oftentimes it's going to be a waste of money. Often you may need to get a concierge, and if you do, often they quarantine it in that area, but during that time and period, if it's not express post, then often the plant may die off. Again, that's another risk that you might have. So in relation to the description, be specific with the information in relation to the plant that you're auctioning. Okay, the next step that I'm gonna give you guys with auctioning is in relation to auctioning for a short period of time. Okay, believe it or not, there are some plant addicts out there that will always keep an eye for a good bargain or deal, and they're always in the market almost 24/7, kind of like how I was when I was buying plants before that I wanted. Okay, so instead of putting up an auction for like 3 days, which a lot of people probably won't bid on, and there might be some people that are interested, but then we'll just forget about it later on. Auction plants for less than 8 hours, okay? True buyers of people who buy from auction actually auction in the last 10 minutes. Okay, oftentimes people don't really buy or auction plants that are days, okay, because they want to know that they're going to secure that deal, and not a lot of people are going to then beat their bids 2 days later, for example. Okay, so for me, typically I would put up an auction for 8 hours or 5 hours, and I call it flash auction. Okay, and the reason why I do that is, number one, so I can get results straight away, and number two, also for my peace of mind. Okay, so when you're putting a plant up for auction, especially if you really love that plant that you're selling, oftentimes it's kind of nerve-wracking how much the value is of how much people are willing to pay for it. But if you put it in short periods of time, believe me when I say this, you're gonna get a price there that you're probably not expecting, that you will most likely be happy with. If you're not happy with it, it's probably because that's the current market value of that plant that you were selling. Okay, so put up a short time when you're auctioning your plants, not days, hours. The pros of it is that you're going to get people fast and quick who are really serious in buying, but the cons of it is that you might not put a bigger net out there to improve the amount of people that actually sees that post. Some people, if you're just trying to just catch a lot of eyes, may just look at it, they don't really care, but serious buyer will actually bid then and there. Okay, so really important to consider and understand. Okay, and the last thing that I want to give you guys a tip on is in relation to the pricing of postage, if you guys are posting it. So most likely when you're selling plants, it could be locally. However, if you're auctioning, oftentimes it could be interstate as well. So with regards to postage, just specify how much it is. Make sure it's an express post and that you specify it. Express post usually comes within 1 to 3 days max. If it's longer than that, often the plant can deteriorate, so just be mindful of it. But in relation to postage costs, again, there are several things that you need to consider. There's the bare minimum payment of what the postage may charge you. Okay, so again, if you guys aren't aware what those price ranges are, I would recommend you talk to your post office on how much it costs for a specific box size and also the weight as well, because that's often how they measure it. However, some of the things that I would consider when actually putting up the postage cost, which is not an inclusion, it's on top of what they're bidding for. I consider the distance that I travel. For example, the post office from where I live is actually quite far. Okay, and it takes probably about $5 worth of fuel to get there and then $5 back. So I always add another $10 on top of that just for the fuel. And then on top of that, I also consider the specific box that I buy. So often it might be $2 or $8 depending on the size of it, as well as the packaging and handling of it. Okay, so packaging, you might, buy a tape, some foam, and all those other stuff. If you want to see a video of how I package my plants, there is a video that I made, which I will link it down below. However, there are other factors that you need to consider, and it's not just the amount of cost of how much you posted it based on what the post office has charged you, but there's other factors as well. Okay, so do consider that, and if the buyer is actually willing to pay for that price, they will bid. If not, then by all means, they're more than happy to just pass your offering. It's really up to them, but do specify it in there so that they're actually well informed. Okay, this is what we call informed choice. Okay, so informed decision rather. Okay, give them all the things that they need to know so that they can decide whether or not they actually want to auction for that plant. And that's pretty much it, guys. So I hope that you guys have found this video useful. If you have, then please go ahead and click that like button. If you do want to see me make more videos like this, then please go ahead and click that subscribe button. Otherwise, I will see you guys on the next video. Until then, goodbye and God bless.